In this video, we will be replacing the front brakes on this 2002 Saturn SL. You will want to install wheel chocks behind the tires, jack the front of the car up, and install safety stands, and set the emergency brake. The center of the wheel first needs to be removed by loosening up the plastic caps. This needs to be done by hand without any tools. After that, we can remove the tire by first removing all four of the lugs and then pulling off the wheel itself. If we take a look at the rotor, we can feel the face of the rotor to see if it feels smooth. Now, although it looks like there are some score marks in it, it actually feels pretty smooth. You can also feel the backside. That also feels smooth. Taking a look at the caliper, we can see the view hole, which allows us to take a look at the pad to see how thick it is. If we take a little closer look, we can see the rotor, we can see the pad thickness, we can see the backing plate of the brake pad, and we have the piston. Now, according to the visual side of this, it looks as though the pad has about 50% of material on it because it is the same thickness as the backing plate. If we take a look at our braking components, we have our rotor, we have our caliper assembly. In our caliper assembly, we have our brake pads. To remove our caliper, to get a closer look at the brake pads, we need to remove the two caliper bolts, one located at the top, one located at the bottom on the back side of the caliper. I'm first going to spray some Amsoil's metal protector on the caliper bolts so that when I go to loosen them, I reduce the chance of breaking the bolts. Next, I'm going to use a ratchet to loosen the bolts. And then I can slowly work that caliper off. Taking a look at the brake pads from this vantage point, I can tell that the inside brake pad has about 50% of material left, as the material thickness is the same thickness as the backing plate, whereas the front pad probably only has about 30% left, as it is quite a bit thinner than the actual backing plate. I went ahead and removed the tire from the passenger side of the vehicle. Taking a look at the brake pads on this side, we can also see that that inside pad has about 50% left. However, the outside pad has about 25 to 30% left. Using a 0 to 1 micrometer, I'm going to take a measurement of the thickness of the rotor and see if the rotors can be resurfaced or if we need to buy new ones. Both sides measured 0.690 inches. The rotor discard thickness is 0.622. This leaves us 0.068 inches that we can remove and still have safe rotors. To remove the rotors, we're first going to remove the brake pads. Next, we need to locate the two bolts that are holding on the caliper mounting bracket, and we're going to spray a little bit of Amsoil's metal protector on those to help loosen those up. And using a socket, we will loosen those up. And then our rotor should come off. And we will set our caliper on here so that we don't put unnecessary pressure on our brake lines. Now that we've turned down our rotors, we're going to clean them with some brake parts cleaner. And make sure to do both sides of the rotor. And then we can reinstall our rotor. I like to install one lug nut towards the bottom of the hub to help hold the rotor in place while I'm installing the rest of the components. If our brake hardware is in good condition, we can clean it with brake parts cleaner and a wire brush. If it is not in good condition, it needs to be replaced. After we've taken care of the brake hardware, we can reinstall the caliper mounting bracket. And make sure you torque those down to specifications. Before installing the brake pads, I like to clean the rotor again. And then we can install the new pads. Before we install the caliper back over the brake pads, we need to reset the caliper piston. Currently the caliper piston is sticking out quite a ways because the old brake pads have become very thin, and that piston compensates for the wearing of the brake pads. So what we're going to do is place one of the old brake pads right up against the piston, and we're going to use a C-clamp to depress that piston. After that, we can reinstall our caliper onto our brake pads. And then we can reinstall those caliper bolts. Once you have all of the pieces reassembled, make sure you step on the brake pedal inside of the vehicle several times until it gets firm. This will set the piston within the caliper on the new brake pads and the newly turned rotor. And lastly, before reinstalling the wheels, I like to clean all of the components one more time with brake parts cleaner.